Well, I think we can go ahead and get started and oh, Chief Thomas is on, or he's connecting anyway. Chief. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is a big thank you to Anita and Daisy, Councilman Clark, Councilwoman Torres, for creating this opportunity to connect with you all. I think on the line right now we have myself, who, and just for those of you who don't know me that's on the line, my name is Mark Fleece. I'm the commander of Police District 4. I have at least one community resource officer on, and that's Ana Munoz.
Yes.
And Monique Sedbury, are you on?
I think she is.
Okay. And of course, Division Chief Ron Thomas is on as well, and be happy to answer any questions later on at the end of this. So the purpose of this, and the reason why I'm trying to start to do more of this, and we've had a couple of them. Obviously, you know, the pandemic and what's happened over the past couple of months has really limited our opportunity to engage and talk to the community. And so we're getting very accustomed, unfortunately, to virtual meetings and all those things. I can't wait for the day that we can get back to a sense of normalcy, that we can actually go back to having in-person meetings again. But in the meantime, until we can't, we're going to try to do as much of this as we can. Up until a couple of months ago, we were doing, and many of you, or some of you had probably attended some of those community advisory meetings that we've had here at the district, and we just haven't had an opportunity to do that. But this is an opportunity for me to provide crime updates, give community members an opportunity to ask questions, to bring up concerns that they have in their neighborhood, or maybe even concern with the response that we've given, either through our officers or through the department itself. Before we get into that, I want to take an opportunity to address the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, and also the events that have transpired since his death. And I want everybody to know, at least it's important for me, that for all of you in our community to know that we stand with you in our outrage and condemnation of what occurred. And I can tell you that there's not one officer that I've talked to, either inside or outside our police department, that's not distressed and horrified by the actions that those officers took in Minneapolis and the outcome. I think it's that important conversations have accelerated with regard to race, social justice, and police reform. We're seeing those across the country, and as a result of what happened in Minneapolis, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's important that everyone in the community knows that DPD, District 4, is committed to continue working with our communities to find ways that we can improve our service to the community, to every one of you. I've been a police officer with Denver for almost 30 years. I'm coming up on my 30th anniversary next year. And I'm certainly dedicated, and always have been, to the importance of building positive relationships with our community members. I started doing this, really the community policing part of police work almost 25 years ago, because back then we had what's called a Weed and Seed program. And, you know, it was, I think, one of the first federal grants that local police departments throughout the country were provided, that actually put officers in the community to act as neighborhood police officers. And the level of engagement that that program had back then, and I think really started and laid the foundation for a lot of the work that we've been doing over the course of the last 30 years. I've seen our department struggle at times, throughout that time. But I've also seen this department grow. I've seen us improve. I've seen us learn from, things that have happened over the years. And I think it's important to talk about some of the things that we as a department have put into place over the years, both to build community relationships and prevent unnecessary force. And I'm going to just go over some of those things. And if you have any questions at the end of this, please feel free to ask me. But one thing that we've done is we've been very strategic, I think, about how we recruit officers and the types of officers that we're looking to hire. And that's with regard to diversity and also individuals with different life experiences. We have an internal system built up, and we've had this for a long time. In fact, I was one of the initial kind of board members, officers that were selected to be on this program. But what it is, it's an internal system to identify officers who may not be breaking policy, but whose performance shows concerns to the point of maybe they need help, or maybe they need extra training or some intervention in how they're interacting with residents. And these things, this system is generated, or these things are generated by use of force incidents as well as complaints that an officer has. So if they have so many within a certain period of time, it triggers this review. And I think it's important that we look at that, because there are a lot of officers that I think go through different stresses, during the course of their life, during the course of their career, that may have an effect on, how they conduct themselves as a police officer. Some are very young and make mistakes. And I think that if we identify and recognize those things early on, before it gets to a point where it's becoming a very serious issue, that we'll be more successful in trying to avoid getting to the point where we have to impose discipline, or it becomes a serious issue. We have a very strong wellness and resiliency program for officers, and I think that's important because I just mentioned the stress that officers have from their jobs and also their personal lives. So there's a ton of resources within this department that officers, and not only officers, but officers and their families, can tap into to alleviate stress. We've got a lot of training that we've done with our officers with de-escalation, with crisis intervention. We've got a liaison to immigrant communities that we've had for a few years. We built partnerships with Volunteers of America, and a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, during one of my community meetings, there's a great video if you ever get the opportunity to go on. I think it's still on YouTube, but it's Camp Postcard, and it's a youth outreach thing that we undertook several years ago. That it involves a summer camp. It's a week-long camp. We have police officers that actually go to camp with, I think, about 20 kids, that are selected to participate in that. And for a solid week, these officers, the kids don't know who these adults are. They just think that they're camp counselors and, people that are up there to kind of supervise them. And the very last day of that camp, they come out with their uniforms on, and it's quite a moving experience if you watch this video and see the interactions and the relationships that these officers have built over the course of that week with these kids. And I think that's just one example of what we've done with our youth programs and youth outreach and community outreach. And there's so many other things, and I won't go into them all, but we are, and I guess this is by no means to say that we're good, that our work is done when it comes to improving service to our community. that we can just stop learning about how we as a department, as a police department, can do better. We'll never be done in that regard. We'll always continue to examine how we can build and expand trust of law enforcement in our community. So those things are important to me. And I know that they're important to the Denver Police Department. And I just wanted to talk about that. I think it's important. So just a little bit about what we've been seeing with crime in our neighborhoods. I did a safety forum with Councilwoman Torres's office 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we talked about crime trends, things that we've been actually seeing during the COVID period that may be a result of the stay-at-home orders and the isolation and all of that. And as a city, we've seen during that period of time increases in aggravated assaults, particularly gun-related assaults. We've seen increases in motor vehicle theft, theft from motor vehicle, and also burglary. So really those 4 categories of crime I think are the things that have been impacted the most. Real quickly, as far as the crime stats year to date, and this is current as of last week for District 4, we are down just a little bit below 3% with our violent crime. And those violent crime include murder, assault, robbery, sex offenses. With our property crimes, we're down about 4% still. So those property crimes include burglaries, thefts, again, motor vehicle theft, theft from motor vehicles, and also criminal mischief cases. As far as neighborhood crime goes, I'm going to talk just real quickly, and I don't know, we may have some people on from different neighborhoods, but as far as city council districts 3 and 7, I think, right?
Yep.
The neighborhoods with them, I'll go over those real quick. Barnum West, we're actually up about 20% in violent crime. Most of the crime has been with aggravated assaults, that increase. But the increase has only been 2 crimes as well. And the data that we're looking at, that I'm talking about, is January through the end of April. We haven't quite got up to speed with our neighborhoods for March, April, or May, June, I guess, or so far in June. So these stats are just through the end of April. But again, we're experiencing that increase in Barnum West as far as violent crime goes. Crimes against property, property crimes are actually down about 17% in that neighborhood. If we move over a little bit to the east in Barnum, we're actually down about 41% in violent crime. And with property crime, we're down just a little bit over 2%. Moving further east over to Valverde, with crimes against persons, violent crime, we're down about 37.5%. And crimes against property is actually pretty even in that neighborhood. Moving down to Athmar Park, we've seen a decrease of almost 18% in violent crime. However, we've seen a pretty substantial increase in property crimes, about 38%. Almost all of those increases, while there's two areas that we're seeing some significant increases in crime. One is criminal mischief and damage to property, whether it be vehicles or structures. And we've seen about 141% increase in those types of crimes so far this year from last year. And talked about theft from motor vehicle just a little bit ago being kind of a COVID maybe related type of an increase in crime or effect. And actually we've seen almost 120% increase in theft from motor vehicles during that period of time from last year. 25 additional crimes. So pretty significant increases with that. Moving down to Ruby Hill, we've seen about a 28% increase in violent crime. Almost all of those increases have been with simple assaults, minor assaults, crimes against property crimes in Ruby Hill, we're actually down about 13%. Moving over to Westwood, up about 7.5% in violent crime and up about 21, almost 22% in violent crime. Again, those are actually property crime, I'm sorry. Most of the increase in property crime have come from criminal mischief cases. And we've seen a fair amount of that, I think, across the districts over the course of the last 2 or 3 months. Just over the weekend, I think into last week, between us and Lakewood, we had 50 car tires slashed in one continuing episode and incident. We've seen, nights where we've had 15, 20 cars that have been damaged by either rocks or BB guns or some other object being thrown through the windshield. So seen a certain amount of that, I think a little bit more than we would normally see. The property crime, I think, I just talked about that in Westwood. Moving down to Marlee, we've seen actually a 19% decrease in violent crime in Marlee and also almost a 12% decrease in property crime. And finally, College View, 6% decrease in violent crime and just a little bit of an increase in property crime, just about 1%, just a little bit over actually. I want to talk just a second or just a minute too about fireworks, because I know that they probably already started. I think that we've started getting some calls for service about fireworks in our neighborhoods, and I will tell you that that's a big issue down here in District 4. I came down here as a commander 5 years ago, and at one of my first community meetings, that was not only one of the first topics that was brought up, but also the most important with community residents. And Councilman Clark, we've had meetings in the past couple of years ago trying to figure out ways that we can respond to these better, maybe alleviate some of the calls and complaints. Very, very difficult to do that. We've struggled to do that. And I don't know if I just mentioned this, but during any given year, District 4 has about 40 to 50% of all the firework complaints that are generated throughout the city. So almost half, and it's consistent year to year. And so it's a big issue down here. So we plan to staff a 2-officer car, 2 of those. And we're going to start those patrols. It's probably not soon enough for many of our residents, but we're going to do that, kick that off Friday, June 26th. And we're going to extend that through Sunday, July 5th. And those officers are going to be out dedicated to answering calls for service for fireworks complaints, enforcing the laws and the ordinance surrounding fireworks when they see it. Those officers are going to be out till 1 o'clock in the morning on every single one of those nights. We're going to get our tip line back up and running here. Well, at least it'll be running by June 26th. Hopefully we'll have that out a little bit early so we can put that out and give residents an opportunity to at least call here at District 4 and let us know where it's happening, when it's happening, because if we can get on those things early, even before the June 26th kickoff, then maybe we can reduce some of that out there. So understand it's an important issue, and we're going to have in the past probably 3 years at least, maybe 4, we've had undercover detectives that are actually assigned to trying to figure out who in the community is selling fireworks or bringing fireworks into our community for sale. We've had a lot of success with that over the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years. In fact, 2 years ago, I think that there was a house, and I can't recall exactly where it was and what neighborhood, but their backyard was set up as a fireworks store. And they had all kinds of stuff. They actually had price tags on the different types of fireworks. So I think when we found that, I think it was close to $50,000 worth of fireworks that we took from them that time. So they'll be looking for those types of things again. And the more specific information that we can get from residents that are calling in trying to report this is specific information related to at least an address. And certainly it always helps us too if somebody's willing to go on to a citation, if we're able to issue one as a witness to say, yeah, I saw this person lighting these fireworks off. I mean, we always act on that type of information. So we're gonna do everything we can again this year to try to address illegal fireworks. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to any concerns you may have in your own particular neighborhoods, or things that we can help you with, questions that I can answer. If I have the answer, great. If I don't, then I'll find out and get back with you. So I don't know how we want to do this. Dean, I guess we can start with you about the traffic issues over on Kentucky. And again, it's something that we are aware of, and I want to make sure that we have your information.
Yeah, and I can get that to you and CC you on the solutions. If we had a LED flashing stop sign, or better yet, a stoplight at Irving and Kentucky, there are plastic reflector posts that we could get that would go down the street, that would work. I have priced these. I have given information to JD and Daisy already, but I can email all of you guys again. There are some physical solutions that would help. If you could scroll down our street, you'll see our rainbow tires that we've done. That is helped, actually, that saved one person already with an accident.
And I'm sorry, what are those?
We put together tires. I'd seen them in Ireland for the Troubles, and they're just tire barriers. And they're very easy to make.
And those are set up to protect your property?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm also concerned about the fireworks. There's a lot of solutions there we can do with like posters. West Metro Fire sells posters at cost saying fireworks are bad for your pets, please respect the neighborhood. And as I drive through Lakewood, I see those. It would help if we could do that. Last year, the year before, we had created a bilingual poster for you guys to put out on doors that had said, hey, one, fireworks are illegal. People don't know that. And two, they are harming people. So this year, please. And I think that did have an effect of the few that we were able to do. We could print those out again. The tip line, if you could get that earlier. Fireworks in this neighborhood start May 5th, and they go nightly until August. If we could, I know it's a lot of resources, but, and I've been asking for years, if you guys could just even record the number of calls that you get, that data would go a long way to helping us get.
You say that last part again about the calls that we get? I'm sorry.
Record the calls you get. Record some. You were talking about the data, and I'm glad you're looking at the data for calls. But if you could record how many complaints you get, that would help.
Well, we do, and we know how many complaints we get. I think that one of the other things that we do is we look at the data for repeated calls for service, especially if it's in a certain block or for a certain address, and so those are things we look at. As far as the posters, we've developed and created the flyers in the past. We're working on just updating those. We should have those done this week that will have all the information that you're talking about, the illegality of fireworks, the ordinance, specific ordinance that it violates, the fact that, as you had mentioned, pets are severely affected by it, individuals and people with PTSD, all those types of things that I don't think people necessarily think about all the time. And so we'll put the finishing touches on that and get that out as much as we can electronically. When you talk about the posters, Dina, how are those displayed in Lakewood?
We had one at our front yard, but they're just like yard signs that you put up, like, you know, you're voting for somebody or whatever, and it just says, please be kind to our neighborhood. And then on the other side, it says, like, fireworks hurt our dogs and cats. And another one is fireworks hurt our vets, honor those who serve, that sort of stuff.
That's a good idea. I think I never thought of that. And
West Metro has them.
let us check
West
into
Metro
that.
Fire Department, they sell them at cost.
Who, the fire department does?
Yeah, West Metro Fire does. In Lakewood?
We will check into that.
Thank you.
Amanda, we can help with some cost if you want to let us know.
Okay.
And get it out to the RNO to distribute.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll look into that. And then the tip line, we'll have that up this week. And so by the end of the week, there's no reason why we can't get that up and get that out. I think one of the things we've been waiting for is just the finishing touches, the updates on the flyers that we put out that has that information about the tip line. But we should be able to have that out without a problem by the end of the week. So.
And in the chat, Ralph Katz is saying that there are fireworks going on right now.
Somebody hears fireworks?
Ralph does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph, you're muted. Ralph,
Nope.
I see you. Yeah, I see you talking, but I think you're muted.
Huh.
I'm not sure. Ralph, can you hear me? I think you were muted when you were talking just a little bit ago.
He's saying in the chat that his microphone must not be working because
Okay.
and it does look like he's unmuted in Zoom, but we still can't hear you. Well,
You can't hear me, right?
now,
Oh,
Kind of, sort of.
no.
That's okay. I'm looking at, I pulled the chat up and so Ralph, if you just want to communicate, oh, you said fire, you're the one who said fireworks is going off as we were speaking, so. Okay. Did you have anything else, Ralph, that you wanted to let us know about? So the fireworks go on and off. The main complaint is they don't always know exactly where they're coming from, and that happens a lot. And you know, we are also working with our dispatch and communications we'll be definitely working with them over the next week or two about how they take in these calls, because I know that there's been some concern from residents about you know, when they call to report fireworks. I think sometimes I've heard reports that, you know, unless we know exactly where it's coming from, that sometimes the caller is told that there's really nothing we can do, or they'll just broadcast it, you know, as just more of an information type of thing rather than assigning it to a specific officer. So we're going to work with them and see if we can't do better with that. We also have these, and we developed these things a couple of years ago. I don't know if anybody can read that. Can you? Is that readable?
I think I saw that last year. Was it the door hanger that you?
Yeah, they're the door hangers, and so it's something that you know, we can go to a specific neighborhood, especially if we're getting complaints about a block, a specific block, and even if we don't have very specific information about the house or where it's coming from, this is the way, at least for us, to put every house on notice in that block that, number one, fireworks are illegal. Just a reminder about that. It's got the number to the tip line, and actually is asking for anybody who can provide us with the description or identification of anybody who's lighting fireworks. So I think it does a little bit to, put people on notice that we're actually paying attention, that, we're investigating something in their block. I think sometimes that may help. So those are some of the things that we're doing. So. So Leslie Dye, Leslie, are you still on? Are you able to talk, or you just want me to address what you wrote? I can do that. So Leslie said once she called with an exact address, willing to sign a complaint, and apparently, as I'm reading this, the officer literally laughed at you, saying that he wouldn't take it. Is that right? Okay. And I can tell you too, if that ever happens, where you're dissatisfied with any type of response that you've gotten from an officer, you have a couple of options. You can right then and there ask to speak to a supervisor, or you can call me directly. I'm always available and we'll always follow up on those things. But we should never have an officer that's called to a complaint like that and tell somebody that they can't sign a complaint. And it's not actually you signing the complaint, it's us issuing a citation to somebody. You would be a witness, is what that would amount to. But it's an infraction against the ordinance, not to any one individual, but you should never be told that. So those types of things happen. I want to know about them.
And question regarding that. So when you call in for fireworks, and like you said that the officer didn't want to go out, are those calls recorded? And you can kind of like go back to that call, that time, that date when the constituent called in?
Chief, do you know the answer to that? I'm not sure that those are or not.
So yes, all calls that come into the dispatch are recorded. So, we can, track back and identify the information that was given from the caller to the call taker, and then the information that was passed along to the dispatcher, and then ultimately aired over the radio. So we can do that kind of checking to see if a call was actually received and how it was received.
Okay. And with the fire tip line, is that a bilingual call as well? People can call in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And even the flyers, I mean, we've on one side it's English, on the other side it's the Spanish interpretation. So yeah. Any other questions from anybody at this point?
Just
Commander, I have a quick question. Can you tell us more about like kind of the cop shop there on Morrison Road, like the hours, and can those hours be adjusted if the community feels that the current hours don't work for the community, and that they should be more when the community is really out and about, like in the afternoons, or offer weekend opportunities?
The hours I know are posted on the outside of the cop shop. I can't tell you off the top of my head what those hours and days are. I can tell you that I think we're looking to revitalize that cop shop, especially and soon, and we're really moving forward to a point where we're close to implementation with the community-based crime reduction grant in Westwood. We had the partner meeting earlier, Daisy. I know you were on that, but there's going to be an intense amount of community outreach that we're going to be doing with our officers. And part of that is going to be centered around the cop shop. So I think that even though you go by there now and you know, the cop shop is probably open maybe 2 or 3 days a week, you know, for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, those hours and days are likely to expand when we kick this thing off, and we're hoping to do that in the next week or two as far as more of the outreach, I think, that we're doing. So keep you posted on that.
And how are Sunday nights regarding like the racers and the cruisers?
It hasn't let up. It's still busy every Sunday evening. We have a team of dedicated officers. We have 2 impact teams here in District 4 that aren't required to answer calls for service. They're a proactive team, so each and every Sunday, unless they're pulled out of that assignment for something else, they are on federal. And they're really, what their objective is to make sure that in those parking lots that we've had issues, the Mercado is one of them, where we've had cars set up in there and squill their tires and make just a huge amount of noise for the community. And there's a couple of other lots like that. We patrol those lots. In fact, we keep officers there all the time during certain hours, usually from about 6 or 7 p.m. till 10 or 10:30 p.m. at night, just to prevent that type of activity going on.
And with
they also, and sorry, Anita, just one more thing. They also pay a lot of attention to the racers. And I can tell you so far this year, and we're keeping a running tab of it, I think there's been 30 vehicles that have been towed and in a public nuisance case put against them for either drag racing or exhibition of speed, reckless driving, whatever is associated with that. So they've been very proactive about those types of vehicles, and us working with the city attorney's office to process those nuisance violations.
So with those businesses, is that after hours when those businesses are closed that people are parking in those parking lots? Like, say, for example, like Mercado?
Yeah, some of it is. I think the Mercado and maybe another business within the parking lot over at Federal in Louisiana. I know they're open a little bit later, and I don't think they're open until 10 o'clock, but certainly during some of the hours that we see some of the heavier volume up on Federal.
Mm-hmm. Is there any way we can like talk to the business owners there and have some kind of way where they can close off the parking lot? Something similar to Los Gallitos, the one off of Alameda and Canosa, when we talk to those business owners and they kind of close that off and, detour the traffic in the area?
We thought about that, and the owners of that particular property, at least the management company, is out of California. And I can tell you that I don't know, about 3 years ago now, I think that, we worked with them quite a bit. It took a lot initially to get them even concerned about the issue. But at the end of that work and that process, they actually did a lot, I think, to try to curtail the activity that we were seeing over there. They put a parking lot or blocks throughout the parking lot so that there wouldn't be big, open, expansive areas for these cars to, the drivers to do their donuts. They put speed bumps in, both in front of the store and I think closer to the street. So there's some things that they did. They actually spent quite a bit of money doing it.
Yeah, I remember that, because then we had to, work with Delfino on, working with that property owner. So I remember that.
Yeah. And we have talked about that lately, because over Cinco, this past Cinco, we actually did a lot of that in that particular parking lot. During certain points of the night, we actually used police tape to, you know, to portion a certain amount of that off so it wouldn't fill up. You know, and we've talked about a lot about, you know, what we're trying to do with our enforcement out there on Sunday nights, and you know, it's not necessarily to keep people out of those lots, because there's a lot of people that come out and, you know, they're not part of the, you know, the driving up and down Federal, but you know, it's the social aspect of it. You know, they gather in parking lots, next to the sidewalk, next to the street. And that's, at least for the 5 years I've been down here, that's never been an issue. You know, we've always had concerns about, you know, things happening, violent crime, that sort of thing, confrontations that may happen if large groups get together, but we haven't seen that. And we've had conversations down here about, you know, trying to figure out, okay, what exactly are we trying to do up on Federal, and what do we want to do? And that's, you know, really we've concluded that it's the noise, you know, that is problematic in the neighborhood, and it's the drag racing. And you know, we've tried to focus as much as we can on those two particular issues. That's why with Mercado Lot, we always have an officer in there patrolling. And as long as that officer's in there with their overhead lights, driving around for those hours, we never have an issue. You know, it's only the times when, for some reason, we've had it happen a couple of times where that officer either is pulled away to deal with something else, or leaves for a short period of time. And it doesn't take long, you know, for those drivers to realize that, hey, the cops aren't there anymore, so they're going to come back in and do their thing. But we've been able to cover that, and I think we'll be able to, you know, to keep doing the same thing. I'm not sure, and I don't think the owners would necessarily, or the, you know, the store managers of those particular businesses over there would necessarily have a problem with us, you know, trying to block off certain parts of that lot. But again, it's not an issue with people just being there and socializing. It's more of the car issues, and you know, I think that we can handle that.
And what about like the new progress that's happening along South Federal Boulevard with the mediums? Do you think that's going to cut back some of that speeding and stuff?
You know, the speeding, I think, you know, what we get from the drag racing and the speeding up on Federal is those impromptu races, you know, where two cars come together at a stoplight. And, you know, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just let traffic clear out in front of them for 2 or 3 blocks, and then step on it and, you know, do a short race there. And so I don't know that those medians are really going to have an effect on that. Now, you know, up in Police District 1, you know, that used to be where a lot of the cruising occurred. And when they put those medians in several years ago, it stopped it up there. You know, whether that was their intent or not, but you know, but we still have it, and so it's not so much the cruising. I mean, I know the cruising creates volumes of traffic, but it's those two issues that come with it. And again, we've been very proactive about dealing with that. I think we could maybe advertise that a little bit more. We've talked with the city attorney's office about you know, putting up some sort of a display, you know, maybe and we've done this before in other nuisance cases where we've actually crushed a motorcycle or a vehicle that's been associated with drag racing. And I don't know if that's something that will affect things. I know that when we take cars like that and we tow them, it has an impact on not only that individual, but that word gets around too. And so, you know, we'll see over the course of the summer if the work that they're doing up there, that impact team, because they're doing quite a lot. I can tell you, think about 30 vehicles that have been towed so far this year. If that has an impact with just the word getting around, that there's a lot of enforcement with regard to that. Any other questions that anybody has on the chat? I'm looking to see if there's anything that popped up. Yeah, Dean, I know that, and we'll look at those things too. I know that you talk about activities for youth and teens, and you know that was a big subject of the conversation that we had earlier today in the Westwood meeting. It's an issue, you know, and especially during the time right now where, you know, organizations, places like the Boys and Girls Club, you know, can't serve those kids, you know, like they're accustomed to. The schools were let out early. You know, a lot of summer programs, you know, aren't happening. So it's an issue that is being recognized. I can tell you that. It's a tough one right now.
It is a tough one, but I think we need to work on both the negative aspects of towing and something positive with the community, because every time that you squelch the racing on Federal, it happens on Kentucky. It happens on Ada.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
in the neighborhoods where people can really get hurt.
Yeah, it does, and I know that some of that gets pushed off. You know, whether it's a result of our enforcement or, you know, that's just sometimes, you know, those streets, and Florida's one of them, you know, that we have issues with. You know, there's 2 or 3 others up and down Federal. Those arterials that you know that branch off, that they're just more open roadways, and we know we have issues there too. But so, you know, we're doing as much to address those as we can. Car show, you mentioned that too. You know, I know that every Sunday night, Councilwoman Torres, I know that you've had some communication too. We certainly have with the car clubs, and they set up, I think it's every Sunday night down at 5th and Federal in the Barnum Park on the east side. So that is happening, you know, on a weekly basis at least.
And those tend not to be the ones that are racing,
No, they're not.
the low riders. So
No.
it's kind of a couple different groups.
Yeah, in fact, they've actually tried to help us, you know, get the message out and the word out to try to stop some of, you know, the racing and that sort of thing.
Right. Commander, I'm wondering if you can share over email afterwards the neighborhood by neighborhood increases and decreases.
Yep, we can get that out.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it. So thank you again, everybody. Again, Councilman Torres, Councilman Clark, thanks for setting this up. Very much appreciated, and we'll talk to you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.